Almost all, Botswana is still a small open economy, heavily reliant on the mining sector. Let's start here. 2023, number one, what's our expectation around diamond output and production really across the country? Is it positive? Is it still good? And then we're quite excited. The past year, we've heard about improvements with respect to copper production. Maybe walk us through these two factors and how that will impact your growth fee.
Thanks, Danny. So firstly, in terms of diamond mining production, I think the outlook is definitely still positive. And I know past performance is no guarantee of future performance, but what we've seen happen in the diamond mining industry over the last 2 years definitely leaves us with that positive outlook. From mines such as Joining as well as Karowe mine, we know that they intend on moving to underground mining over the next year or so. And that is obviously expected to extend the life of mines for both sites and leads to that positive outlook we definitely have in terms of mining. And what we've also seen towards the end of last year was the positive sales that were coming out from rough diamond sales. So that's definitely an indication from our view that, based on the performance that we saw with sales being over 40% of what we'd seen the year before, that performance is still, or rather output will still be pretty much supported by demand going forward.
Yeah.
And in terms of other areas such as copper production, since 2016, Botswana has really not produced much copper since the closure of BCL. But what we've seen since 2021 is that, Comecau started its operations and it reached full capacity on production by the end of last year. And in 2023, we expect two other sites to be opened, operated by both Sukudu and Sunfire in the Kalahari Copper Belt, which should support copper mining production domestically going forward.
So over the course of 2022, we had a great sentiment coming from a lot of our clients regarding disruptions at borders. And this has been associated with some of the domestic policies that Botswana has implemented. What are some of the key things that you're monitoring in 2023 to really gauge whether the situation is getting worse or getting better?
Great, thanks for that question, Danny. So firstly, in terms of those import substitution policies, we do expect them to be in place for a further 2 years. So right through to 2024, obviously subject to periodic review. But in our view, the intention behind those policies was obviously to try and support local production for fresh produce across various vegetables and the like. And, the government has since come to the fore with other policies to try and support basically the border closures. So you have revised policies such as the Demo Little program, as well as the Impact Accelerator Subsidy. So all these policies are basically being brought forward to try and ensure that we move from subsistence level farming and try and build up that basically SME base all the way up to commercial.
Yeah.
And obviously this also feeds into the broader agricultural market in terms of some of the other developments on the upper end that they're trying to also develop to try and support commercial farmers.
So this is coming at a very interesting time. We spoke about this earlier, but I find it quite interesting. You're in a transitional NDP. So maybe just explain to us what that means, because I think as we were imagining, we should be going into NDP 12.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So our 11th NDP was due to end in March 2023, with the 12th one coming into effect in April. But that's since been delayed. So over the last 2 years, essentially, the government has been undergoing a rationalization kind of exercise of its ministries as well as various state-owned enterprises. And they saw it fit to delay essentially the onset of the NDP 12 until that process was completed. Another key intention is also to try and align basically Botswana's planning processes with its electoral kind of cycle. So with us going to elections in 2024, it gives whichever government basically will be ruling the day in 2025 the ability to input into Botswana's development process.
Yeah, so that makes sense. One key theme that we are contending with, we keep talking about the impact on the inflation, the impact that this is having on consumers. We get a sense that it's been materially difficult for a lot of people in Botswana simply because in getting into the pandemic and during it, we already saw inflation ticking up. What does this look like in 2023? Do you think there'll still be these pressures on the consumer base?
Absolutely. So we do expect those pressures to persist. Our outlook for this year is for inflation to average still in double-digit territory. So that's way above the central bank's 3 to 6% objective range. And in terms of wages also increasing to try and relieve some of that pressure, we've only seen 5% salary increases for government workers being locked in. So it still leaves quite a lot of pressure on consumers. And with our view of rates also continuing to tick up, it just adds on to that pressure that households are likely to face. But in terms of where we see inflation trending, we expect it to start moderating. Obviously, still remaining above the central bank's objective range, but nothing close to that 14.6% peak we saw last year.